Hello, everyone. Welcome to Science Buffs, the ultimate podcast for STEM enthusiasts. My name is Abby,
And I'm Sam.
and we are going to have Sam teach me about an exciting topic. But first, let's talk about our weekly updates. Sam, what's new this week with you?
Honestly, nothing's new this week. I'm in the midst of school, so that's about it. But
Gross.
yeah, I got
Gross.
my nails done and I don't really like how they look that much. So
Show
that's
the
been kind of
show
a
the
bummer.
people.
I don't like them.
Oh, I like them. They're cute.
Yeah, I feel like I look
Are they
like,
black?
yeah, the black tips.
Bold move.
Bold move. Well, I dyed my hair dark. I think I'm going through a
Yes.
phase.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going through a crisis.
Just a phase, mom. Or
It's just
not
a
just a
phase.
phase.
Yeah, my hair is like what I call dishwater colored naturally. And then I was looking through old
Dishwater
pictures
color.
and I was like, I really want to dye my hair like dark again. So I did that. And then I was like, I'm going to go full edgy
I
and do black
really,
nails.
I really like the hair color that you have now.
I
It's
like it
nice.
too.
The first day I saw day one, and it's always like a darker on day one. I like
Yeah.
where it's settled.
It's supposed to be like a
Honestly,
warm
like,
dark.
yeah, honestly, all of your hair colors kind of, I don't know. I feel like your skin tone is good with any hair color. Like if you go straight redhead, it also works.
I'm like a chameleon.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
it all
I
works.
remember talking to you in college because I was like, should I go redhead? And you're like, yeah, just try it. It was the
Well,
craziest thing
like
I've done.
you seem like a ginger naturally. So I don't
Yes,
understand how your hair is not red because like your
I know.
skin would say you're a redhead, freckles, redhead, like you just look like a redhead.
Yeah, and I feel like most people think I'm a redhead. Like if I dye my hair red, they think it's
Yeah,
natural. And I have
right.
no redheads in my family. And like
That's
most people in my
interesting.
family don't have freckles either. I
Wow.
don't know. Shout out to my mom. Maybe I'm adopted. I look too much
Maybe.
like both of my
Never
parents.
know. Shout out to our DNA test episode.
Yeah. Maybe we should go back.
Oh,
My
which by
mom's
the
like,
way, update on that. I am like so Swedish. got my
oh,
results back.
yes. Update the
I'm
people.
I'm like about as Swedish as you can be. So my mom has said she has claimed that she's been 100% Swedish, and we're like, okay, yeah, right. And then I did my test, and it's really cool. They can break down like without even your parents doing the test, they can break down like the percentages of your parents. So it came back that my mom was 100% Swedish. So I'm like pretty Swedish. And then my dad, I forget his percentage, like under 40, but I got 32% Swede from him. Like it
That's
doesn't come
wild.
down evenly or whatever. So I'm like,
It's not like you would get 20% and then like your kids
right,
would get 10%.
right. It kind of is uneven. So I didn't get some of his, barely any of his other like nationalities, but I got like so much of Swedish. So I'm,
That's wild.
yeah, I'm like 82%. So you're basically looking at a Swede. So
Looking
I
at
need
a
to go
Swede.
visit the motherland very
I'll go to
soon.
Sweden with you. I've always wanted
Oh,
to go there.
I know. My mom has been there and she said it was like amazing and she met some old relatives and stuff. And I'm like, also, people are already messaging me on Ancestry, like, we're related. I'm like, your second
What?
cousin once removed. Let's get in
So have you been
contact. I'm
adding
like,
to
is
your
this a
tree?
scam? Yeah, but it's like not connected with my DNA somehow. I mean, it is, but like, it doesn't show like, oh, this person's connected to you as your second cousin. It doesn't like trace back the tree. So I have to do that kind of
Oh,
manually. I don't know. It's kind of odd.
that's crazy. I need to
Yeah,
do that. I'm interested
yeah,
in
you
doing
really
that.
should. That should have been
I
my
know
Christmas gift to you. And by the
it's
way, update on that,
expensive.
I still haven't gotten to Sam her Christmas gift because I keep forgetting it every time we hang out.
Yeah, it's so funny. We meet up with the intention of you giving me the gift, and then we
I'm
always
like,
get
I
there and you're
have to
like,
give
I
you the gift.
forgot it.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot
At
it
this
again.
point, I'll just wait till next Christmas.
No, 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 no. Next time I will give you the gift. I've had it now set on my counter, so I will not forget. Like it's been down on this shelf, and I'm like, that's Sam's Christmas gift. And now it's just been up on my kitchen counter for like a week as
That's so
punishment that I
funny.
forgot it again.
That's amazing. That sounds like something I would do though.
Yeah.
You have a
Well,
lot going
yeah.
on, so
Yeah, like
I
getting
can
everyone out of the
understand.
house and like together, and I'm like going through my checklist, and the gift just didn't make it twice.
That's okay. That's okay.
Especially because it's in this box that looks like it's a tea kettle that I got for Christmas. So like I think it registers in my mind as like like a trash box, and then I just don't pick it up. I'm like, ugh, sucks.
Well, the best thing about this is that it's just another excuse for me to see you again.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we'll have to exchange it on like Friday or something.
yeah, we will. You want to talk about the shows you're watching right
Oh,
now?
well, okay. Yes. So I am watching on Netflix Love is Blind, Sweden.
What? I didn't know they had
Oh
that.
my gosh. It's like new. It's coming out. Well, so there's 8 episodes released right now as of this recording. And I think like the ninth episode, there's gonna be 10 episodes. The ninth is coming out in like 3 days. And then the finale is coming out like 2 days after that, I think.
I cannot believe you
Oh,
didn't text me to watch this. I've been waiting for
oh,
something to watch.
literally, it's crazy. It is crazy. Well,
Is it
first of
crazier
all,
than the US version?
well, it's just it's more annoying a little bit especially in the beginning because so like the experiment. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know the show, basically they meet in these pods like behind a wall so you can't see what the other person looks like, and it's like an experiment about if you can fall in love, if love is blind, like if you can fall in love just on personality and not looks. Clearly the experiment does not work because there's been like however many seasons in the US. Like love is not blind, we have
Love is
established
not
this.
blind.
And so it was really stupid because they were getting close to their engagements, and this guy Rasmus or Rasmus or whatever, he was like, oh my gosh, I really like this girl, but oh my gosh, I'm so shallow. Like, honestly, if she doesn't look good, like, it's a deal breaker. Like, oh, I need you to be hot. I
Then
need
why
you
would
to be
you
so hot.
go on that
I'm like,
show?
then don't go on Love is Blind.
That's ridiculous.
And then someone else basically said the same thing. Spoiler alert, really quick. There's this guy that I really don't like. And then this girl had this vulnerable moment of being like, I used to get bullied because I had scoliosis and I had to wear this brace. And then he came back and he was like, huge turnoff that she used to be bullied. And all the
What?
other guys were like, you are trash. Like, you suck. And he's like, I'm ashamed of how I feel, but I'm just trying to be honest. But
That
he's
reminds
like,
me of
ugh.
Deep D and the Deep D, and I see I don't even remember his name because he was so mean. But he was talking behind her back about how he wasn't attracted to her.
Oh, is that like the
And
newest one?
no, this was like 2 seasons ago, but
Oh, I think I missed a couple
yeah,
seasons, but yeah, like they're like
so shallow.
super shallow. And then I was reading reviews online because I was trying to find out spoilers before I realized there were still a couple episodes to come out. And all the reviews are like, why did they pick the most shallow people in all of Sweden to be in this show?
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then one guy's like obsessed with this girl, and she's just like, thanks.
That's like the last season where the one girl finally
Yes.
met him and she was like, "You look like a cartoon
Oh
character."
my
That
God.
was so mean.
You can tell she was on the show. Like some people are on the show just to be famous,
Yeah.
get their little 15 minutes of fame. And she was one of them. Like she was so mean to him. She was laughing at him the whole time. And she's like, yeah, I'll get married to you. Huh?
Yeah.
I
No,
think
she was on to
you
be
can't beat the
famous.
first season when no one knew what it was. And now you're like, why are you all here if you're
Yeah,
shallow? But anyway,
exactly.
that's what I'm watching. So yeah, I thought
That's
I'd fill you in on
awesome.
the pod because it's crazy, but you should
I need
watch.
to watch that and it applies to your Swedish nature.
Yes, I know. I was like, this is my homeland's dating pool. I gotta see what's
I'm
happening.
definitely gonna watch that.
It's crazy, but yeah, there's like one solid couple, I think, and then all the rest of them, I'm like
That's
one guy
usually
was
how it pans out.
one guy. This is really funny. He was like picking out wedding clothes. They're like at that stage, and he goes, oh, like he started kind of panicking, and he's like, I'm not sure if I'm there yet. Like, I'm feeling a little panicked. Like I feel it in my voice. I could break down right now. I think I will go home and cry.
Oh my
But
goodness.
I'm listening to the dubbed version, so it's like
Yeah.
he's like, I think I will go home and cry later.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna watch this. I'm
It's
definitely
great.
gonna watch
So
this.
anyway, everyone should watch. All
Oh
right,
my
well that's
gosh.
all for my updates.
Those were some good updates. Yeah, I have
Thank you.
nothing new going on right now. So
Great. Well, I think we're ready to get into the topic then.
All right, this is a good topic. I'm excited and I hope I do it justice.
I'm
Okay,
excited.
so I have three clues for you.
Okay.
Like we do every week.
I'm like,
The first one, it has to do with the medical field, which I kind of gave you this clue earlier because I was like,
yeah.
I'm gonna
Is
do
it
medical
okay?
field.
Open heart surgery.
No, but that's a good guess.
What if I just guessed that?
That would have been good because my dad had open heart
Right. I
surgery.
thought there
So
was
I
maybe a
think
connection there.
it was an educated guess.
Right.
Okay, the second clue is it's something that has personally affected my life.
In medical science.
Yes.
Should I
You're
know
like
it
high
based off of this? I'm not
you're like high
panicking.
cholesterol.
I just put you on blast.
Yeah, I've had high cholesterol for 3
High
years.
triglycerides or something.
No,
I'm just kidding.
it's not that.
Um, Shoot, personally affected your life, medical science. I don't know.
Wait,
Sight,
no.
glasses,
Eyesight.
LASIK,
No, that's a good guess too, though. It has to do with neuroscience.
brain
Oh my goodness.
waves. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Okay. It
Should
has
I know it
okay.
based off of this?
Yeah, you
Neuroscience?
probably should, but that's okay.
Well, it's a little in sketchy territory when you say that it personally has affected you.
Yeah, you're like you're like mental health. Just no, epilepsy.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
totally should have known that.
Yeah, so we're gonna go into the
Okay.
so we're gonna talk about a few
Oh,
things. We're
this will
gonna
be
talk
an
about
interesting one.
what epilepsy is. We're gonna talk about some of the history of epilepsy, how it's like diagnosed and different types of epilepsy. But first, I'll just like talk about why I'm gonna do this topic. So personally, when I was about 13 years old, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. I had been having these moments where I would just kind of like stare off into space and I would have like no recollection of anything that had happened. And, my mom, I think, was a little concerned, but thought maybe it was just part of like growing up until it happened to me when I was getting my teeth cleaned at the dentist. And the dentist, like, because she's a doctor, recognized that that was not normal.
Oh,
So I went
good
and got
timing.
a ECG, which we will talk about, or sorry, EEG, and we'll talk about what
Okay.
that is. But it's how they diagnose. That's one way you can diagnose epilepsy. And I found out that I had what's called petit mal epilepsy. We'll talk about what that is
What?
too. Yeah.
Is that where you have to like stay up, do the sleep testing, and they put like the nodes and all that?
Yeah. So I was being a bratty teenager and did not want to do it. And my mom dragged me there. I remember I had to stay up really late and be super sleep deprived because as we're going to talk about one of the things that can trigger seizures is being super sleep deprived. And so that was one of the things that triggered my seizures. And but they go in and you put all these wires up to your brain and I just remember thinking it was like cool, but also kind of crazy at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
I think I told you
yeah. So,
at one point I did one of those tests and it was like the best night of my life because I was like 9 and they told me I had to stay up all night like and so my
exactly.
dad just stayed up and watched movies with me and it was
Yeah.
awesome because I had
That's
like
exactly what happened to me.
I've had two seizures in my life so they had to like rule out that so I guess went through that test as well but they ruled that I did not have it so
Yeah. Yeah. I remember my dad stayed up with me too, but it was like
so
nice
fun.
because they make you sleep during the test.
Yeah, and then
So
they're
that
like
was kind of
expecting you to
nice.
sleep with like all the stuff on your head. Like
Yeah.
this isn't comfortable to sleep.
I fell asleep.
I'm sure I did after up all night, but I was
Yeah.
like, this is not the peak of comfort.
Yeah, it was not the peak of comfort. But yeah, so that's why I chose this specific topic.
Cool.
And so what is epilepsy? So epilepsy is a chronic brain disorder in which groups of nerve cells or neurons in the brain sometimes send the wrong signals and can cause seizures. Neurons normally generate electrical and chemical signals that act on other neurons, organs, and muscles to produce human thought, feelings, and actions. So that's like the scientific definition of
Okay.
epilepsy. And this is from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, just so you guys know. um, so during a seizure, many neurons send signals at the same time, much faster than normal. This surge of excessive electrical activity can cause involuntary movements, sensations, emotions, and or behaviors. The disturbance of normal nerve cell activity may cause a loss of awareness. So that's what I experienced. And some people may recover immediately after a seizure, which I was lucky that I would recover very quickly, but others may take minutes or even hours to really feel like themselves again. And when they're recovering, they can feel really tired, sleepy, weak, or maybe even confused.
Okay.
So yeah, so a lot of people I think that when you think of epilepsy, you think that there's just one type of
Yeah, for sure.
seizure when you're having like grand mal seizures and you're actually convulsing, but like there's different types of seizures that we'll go into. So epilepsy, and it's sometimes just referred to as a seizure disorder, can have many different causes and seizure types. They can vary in severity and impact from person to person and can be accompanied by a range of pre-existing conditions. It can also epilepsy is sometimes called the epilepsias because the diversity of types and causes. So it's like many different types of diseases in one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it says some people have full convulsions, like I mentioned, and other people may simply stop what they're doing, have a brief lapse of awareness, and stare into space for a short period of time. So some people have them infrequently, and some people have hundreds a day. When I got diagnosed with epilepsy, they told my mom that I was probably having hundreds of seizures a day. They're just so short that you just don't even notice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's kind of wild.
So do you still, I mean, you'll probably talk about this, I guess. So maybe you would just hold this question. But do you still have them?
No. So I grew out of epilepsy. So yeah, that's a good question. So you can grow out of it or it can get worse pretty much. So I had like childhood epilepsy. But yeah, I went on anti-seizure medication, and then when I was about 16ish, I grew they figured that they would see if I grew out of it and I didn't have seizures anymore. So that was good. Yeah. So who is more likely to have epilepsy and seizures? So anyone can develop epilepsy. It affects both men and women of all races, ethnic backgrounds, and ages. And it has many causes, but about half of people living with epilepsy don't know what caused it. So in some cases, epilepsy is clearly linked to genetic factors. So it can run in families. Developmental brain abnormalities, infection, traumatic brain injury, stroke, brain tumors, or other types of brain problems. Anything that disturbs the normal pattern of nerve cell activity can lead to seizures. Epilepsy can develop because of problems in the brain's wiring, an imbalance of nerve signaling in the brain cell, in which some cells are unusually active or stop other brain cells from sending messages to each other, or some combination of these factors. And sometimes when the brain tries to repair itself from like a severe, that's Ranger, sorry. Ranger. So sometimes
the people want to hear Ranger.
Yeah. Yeah, he likes to make himself known. Sometimes when the brain tries to repair itself after a head injury or stroke or any other traumatic problem, it can unintentionally create nerve connections that cause seizures.
Okay, interesting. Did it mention, I forgot, because I think I don't know if it's like, if epilepsy could be caused by this, but just individual like one-off seizures. Mine was caused, I think, by like a high fever.
Yeah, so they have We're going to talk about that because I had some of those too, which is not
Okay.
related to epilepsy.
Okay.
They call them febrile seizures.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So yeah, febrile seizures are seizures that happen when a child has an illness that causes a high fever. So children who have febrile seizures are typically not prescribed anti-seizure medication
Right.
unless they have a
Okay.
family history of epilepsy.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I had one of those as well. They're very common, I think.
That would be very scary as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually when you're sick, I don't know. I
Yeah.
remember I was like, when it happened to me, I was wearing footy pajamas. And because like a lot of heat comes out of your
Yes.
feet,
Oh my
that wasn't
gosh.
able to escape from,
Mine
yeah.
was foot related as well. I
That's
was
crazy.
sick, and then to like feel better, we had like one of those wax, like, remember those like
Oh my
wax
God.
bathtubs in like
My
in
parents
like
had
the
one of
early
those.
2000s?
My
I was
parents
like,
had
I
one of
really want
those.
to do that. And then I like put my feet in, and then like 5 minutes later, I just went into my parents' office and was like, I don't feel so good. Passed out,
That's
had a
crazy.
seizure. Foot related
Wow.
as well, though. Crazy.
Foot related. Yeah, I think they're common. I remember one time I was at an amusement park with my parents and we saw a child have one because it was
Oh,
so hot
that'd
that
be
day.
so scary.
Yeah, and like luckily, like obviously the mom was really worried, but luckily my mom like could kind of recognize what was happening and
Oh,
was
that's
able to
good.
kind of like explain like
That's good.
what it probably was. Yeah, so good question. So what role do genes play in epilepsy? So no one else in my family has epilepsy.
Okay.
So for me, I don't think it's like a genetically inherited thing. But genetic changes can play a key role in the development of epilepsy. So many types can affect multiple family members. It can run
Oh,
in families, pointing to an inherited gene or genes. In other cases, gene variations may occur spontaneously
okay.
and contribute to the development of epilepsy in people that have no family history of it. So it's like a mutation.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
Overall, researchers estimate that hundreds of genes could play a potential role in epilepsy. So they haven't like
Oh,
narrowed down like what specific gene tracker can contribute to epilepsy.
being a geneticist would just be so fascinating
It
for
would
stuff
be.
like this,
I
like trying
know.
to track down what the most likely one is or whatever. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting with like you can opt, you know more about this than me, but you can opt to get like prenatal testing
Yeah.
and they look for certain trackers, right?
Yeah,
For
I didn't do
specific
any
diseases.
prenatal testing, but yeah, what's kind of weird is like, from what I've heard at least, they only give you like a percentage of maybe what could be an issue. Like they don't say, yes, your baby
Interesting.
has this disorder. It's like there's an 80% chance that they have this or something,
Interesting.
which is hard to, I don't know. That's why I never did it because I was like, well, if I'm not getting a yes or no, I'm just going to be stressing more.
It decreases their liability, I bet.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't think it's like, oh, 99%. Like, I think it's, I don't know. I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Okay. So several types of epilepsy, they call it channel. This is hard to pronounce. Channelopathy associated epilepsy have been linked to variations in genes that provide instructions for ion channels,
okay.
which they call quote gates that control the flow of ions,
Mm,
charged molecules in and out of cells and help regulate neuronal signaling.
okay.
So that's kind of interesting, I guess. Other genetic changes that may play a role in epilepsy include variations in genes that control how neurons move through the brain during development. So neuronal migration, and genes that help break down carbohydrates in the brain. I didn't know your
Okay.
brain broke down
Okay.
carbohydrates.
This is so fascinating because, well, maybe we talk about treatments later. I'm sure you are talking about them, but the keto diet. The keto diet was developed. Do you talk about that at all in your
No,
notes? Okay, the
no.
keto diet was developed, and now it's all controversial because people just do it to lose weight and stuff, which whatever. But the keto diet was developed to treat epilepsy originally, and it has like super high rates of success from what I remember reading because
Wow.
of this, where your brain is breaking down carbohydrates, and that's where things go wrong if you aren't eating carbohydrates. there's less of that going on. And so a lot of people's epilepsy improves on keto.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, the
Yeah.
only note that I had was that diet can severely affect or
Yeah.
help your
Yeah. A lot of people like with
severity of epilepsy.
severe epilepsy will get put on a diet like that, from what I've
That
researched and stuff. So
that is so
fascinating
interesting.
though, because that all is starting to click now that you said that. I didn't know the brain broke down carbs either.
I didn't either.
Interesting.
Yeah, I and that was not suggested as far as I can remember. I mean, I was 13, but um I don't remember that being suggested to me
I think it's
to
like
prevent
somewhat,
seizures.
well, I don't know if it's new as in like, I think it might have been more obscure as like a treatment until recently where they've actually like studied it and realized that people do improve like on it and had more time, but I
That's
don't know if it was, I
interesting.
think it's gained more popularity in more recent years probably.
I'm gonna have to look into that
Yeah. It's
some
wild.
more. So okay, so we're gonna get into what can trigger seizures. So seizure triggers do not cause epilepsy, but can provoke seizures for those that are like do have epilepsy.
Hmm.
So some triggers can include stress, drinking alcohol, or alcohol withdrawal,
Mm.
dehydration, exposure to toxins or poisons, hormonal changes, sleep deprivation, and probably the one that most people think about is visual stimulation, such as flashing
Oh,
lights or
right.
moving patterns.
Okay.
So that kind of relates to I was tested. I remember being tested for the strobe lights,
Oh,
and that
okay.
did not cause my seizures, but stress and sleep deprivation
Mm.
really increased the amount of seizures that I
I think
had.
it's like different triggers for different types of, how you were saying there were like different types of seizures or different types of epilepsy. Like when I think of the light stimulation, I think of like only grand mal seizures. But I
Yeah,
guess
I
that,
don't
I don't know. Maybe that's just I don't know a lot about epilepsy in general, so maybe that's
I
why.
think I think it could be any type of seizure. So you could
Okay.
have, yeah, you probably could have
Any
triggered,
variety of it.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's a good segue because we're going to get into the types of seizures. So
Okay.
they call them there's two broad categories of seizures. So there's focal seizures and generalized seizures. So a
Okay.
focal seizure comes from just one part of the brain. About
Hmm.
60% of people with epilepsy have focal seizures, and they are frequently described by the area of the brain in which they originate.
Hmm.
So, for example, many people are diagnosed with focal frontal lobe or medial temporal lobe seizures. So it's like a very
Uh,
specific part of their
okay.
brain. Um, then there's generalized seizures. So they result in abnormal neuronal activity that rapidly emerges on both sides of the brain. These
Hmm.
seizures can cause loss of consciousness, falls, or massive muscle contractions.
Oof.
Um, Types of generalized seizures are absent seizures. That's what I had. It can cause the person to appear to be staring into space with or without slight twitching of the muscles. There's many different types of seizures. There's tonic seizures, which can cause stiffening of the muscles or the body,
Hmm.
generally in back legs or arms. Clonic seizures, I've not heard of this one, can cause repeated jerking movements of muscles on both sides of the body.
Hmm.
And then there's a few more. But yeah, there's other types of seizures. We talked about febrile seizures. That's what we had talked about, but it's not
Right.
not technically um, epilepsy.
Okay. Right.
Um, yeah, and then there's also something called eclampsia. Have you heard of eclampsia?
Yes, because I'm tested for preeclampsia with pregnancy like a bunch of times.
Yeah,
Also, good show that highlights eclampsia is called The Midwife. It's like this show about these midwives like after World War II, and they highlight this woman who gets eclampsia and like dies because of it. So it's all for
really.
medicine now.
Yeah, I had heard that word and I never knew what it was until today.
Isn't
So,
it like
because I
a
knew it was a
really
concern.
high blood pressure and stuff, and then it causes seizures because of your high blood pressure?
Let me look. Uh, let's see.
I think that's what it was, but
Pregnancy related blood pressure disorders. Yep.
yes. Okay.
Uh, yeah. And it's when pregnant women with preeclampsia develop seizures or coma.
Yes. Yeah, scary stuff.
Yeah. Um, so there's multiple different ways that epilepsy can be um, diagnosed, but the one that I want to talk about is the one that I had experience with, which is an EEG. And I'm
Okay.
going to totally butcher how this is said, but it's one word. It's like 50
Oh,
letters.
whoa.
So it's electroencephalogram.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
it does sound, it's the same vibes.
Yes. But it's a test that measures electrical activity in the brain, which just that sentence just always blows my mind that you're like electrical activity in your brain. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And it can look for abnormalities in a person's brain waves to help determine if an anti-seizure drug would help.
Okay.
Video monitoring may be used in conjunction with the EEG to determine the nature of a person's seizures. So I will post a picture of what an EEG screen looks like because it is crazy. Like you can see a spike when someone has a seizure
Wow.
and their brain activity.
I can't believe we can do that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So just repeating a little bit, an EEG is a test that detects abnormalities in your brain waves or in the electrical activity of your brain during the procedure. It's interesting they call it a procedure, but
Yeah,
that's what Johns
I guess.
Hopkins calls it.
Okay.
Electrodes consisting of small metal discs with thin wires are pasted to your scalp. And the electrodes detect tiny electrical charges that result from the activity of your brain cells. So I thought that's interesting. The charges are amplified and it appears as a graph on your computer screen or as a recording that may be printed out on paper.
Hmm.
And then the doctor looks at it, which is interesting. During the EEG, your healthcare provider usually would evaluate about 100 pages or computer screens of activity for them to like make a determination on whether or not they think that you're having seizures.
That's crazy
And
that
then
they have
they
to analyze
do,
that much.
I know, and then they do a bunch of obviously different tests to see what can trigger it. So, like we mentioned, you fall asleep or they
Right.
expose you. I remember they had like this bar that they made me close my eyes, but then they put the bar over my eyes and then flashed a bunch of lights on it to see
Oh
if I
man.
was triggered by lights or anything like that. So that was kind of interesting. And then yeah, and then if you have epilepsy or then they determine next steps. I think most
Okay.
are treated with medication, and if not, in like more severe cases, they might need to do surgery on
Right.
some part of your brain.
Oh
uh, yeah,
man.
which I would love to do a whole episode just on brain surgeons because
Yeah.
it's wild what these people
Ugh.
do.
Yeah. Can you imagine how nerve-wracking that would be?
No pun intended.
Oh, good one.
That was a really good one. I had a minute where I was debating whether or not I wanted to say that. Oh my
Canceled.
god, canceled. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about briefly, this is very brief, but the history of epilepsy. It's
A
not
dark
great.
history. Yeah.
It is a dark history, but I think it's important because we've learned a lot.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
epilepsy is an ancient disease and it has fascinated and frightened scientists and laymen alike, is what this says.
Okay.
But before the working knowledge of the human nervous system, seizures were just shrouded in mystery because they are worrisome when you see them. You don't necessarily know how to help someone that is having a seizure,
Mhm.
but in ancient times, this disease was accredited to gods and demonic possession, causing those with epilepsy to be feared and isolated.
Mhm.
And so the first documentation they have about epilepsy can be traced back to a 4,000-year-old tablet found in Mesopotamia,
Mm.
which is crazy.
Wow,
4,000 years old. Um, so I thought that was wild. It's been around
yeah,
a really long time.
for sure. I wonder
And
how they
then
documented it on that scroll. Like,
it says they translated it. It essentially described someone having a grand mal seizure.
okay,
And so
interesting.
yeah, nearly a millennium later. I feel so dumb. How much? How
It's a
many years is a
thousand.
millennium?
A
Oh, it's a
thousand.
thousand years. Is the Millennium Falcon 1,000 falcons?
Yeah, it's probably the size of 1,000 falcons. You can fit that on the inside.
Oh my God, that makes so much sense. Evidence of epilepsy has also been found in ancient Egypt, as indicated in a papyrus written about 1700 BC. Um, and so I found it interesting because I remember actually learning. The reason I brought this up is I remember learning in high school that during the Salem witch trials, it is suspected that some of the women were actually just suffering from seizures,
Oh,
and they
that
accused them
makes
of
sense.
witchcraft.
The Salem witch trials, which I don't know, I feel like I've been ignorant to, but did you hear the whole thing where they're like, if they wait, they would like throw them in the river, like tied up or whatever. And if they didn't, oh, if they drown, they're a witch. And if they,
No, I think
or
it's
wait,
vice versa, right? I think I did.
if they
I did hear about that.
survive, they're a witch, so they kill them. Right, that's it. And then if they drown, they weren't a witch. I was like, what a catch 22.
I know. I do
That's
remember that. Yeah.
terrible. Ugh.
So I wanted to bring that up because that is the theory.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
we've learned a lot since then. Um, and if you have any questions on epilepsy, what I mentioned at the beginning, the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke is really helpful and has a bunch of information on it. And then there's an epilepsy awareness month slash day is in March. And so I've gone to like a 5K for it before to like raise awareness for epilepsy. But the interesting fact that I'm going to have round out this podcast is my parents actually adopted a dog that has epilepsy.
Oh
So
yeah.
shout out to Archie,
Arch,
Archibald.
so cute.
Yeah, we bonded, but so pets and animals can also have seizures, but he would
That is
have,
fascinating.
yeah, his seizures were different. He doesn't really have like grand mal seizures, but he kind of just stares and you can tell that he's out of it and is scared. But
Did they
um
adopt him like knowing he had epilepsy because you had
yeah,
epilepsy? Oh, that's so
I told him
cute.
to. Yeah, so we're little epileptic pals.
Oh, that's so cute.
But it can be treated.
Oh,
You're not alone. Lots of people have at least experienced one seizure in their life, or know someone that has. And there's lots of scientific research out there to help you
yeah,
if this is something you're experiencing.
yeah. There's a lot of, it seems like there's, I mean, I'm not involved really with the epileptic world as much, but one of my um like dance teammates had epilepsy and it seemed like whatever the medications that she was on were very, very helpful. So,
Yeah.
but it was crazy because like, what age did you say you grew out of it? Like around 16?
Yeah.
And I think they were doing the same sort of thing with her where they were trying to see if she grew out of it around 16 because she couldn't drive. Don't you have to be off of seizure medication for like a certain
That's what
amount of
happened to
time?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know when. I think she was on it for a bit longer, but yeah, it's like that's kind of a definitely seems like a little bit of a difficult time, because then you are a little behind your friends, like driving and all that. So
Oh, yeah. That happened. I got my license and then they're like, we're going to take you off your medication. And um, then they're like, you can't drive for 6 months, telling a
is it
teenager
only
that
when
just got her
you're
license.
is it only when you're not or sorry, is it only when they're like weaning you off of the medication that you can't
Yes.
drive, or like if you're on seizure medication you cannot drive?
No, if you're on seizure medication, that's a good question because when I got my license, they didn't require me to like test to see if I had seizures still.
Hmm.
But it was when I went off my medication, they, I don't know if it's the law, but my doctor
I guess it would
said
be
like
a
not to
doc.
drive for
I think
six
they
months.
probably default to the doctor, like
Yeah.
doctor's opinion, because I also think people who don't have it under control with medication also get a recommendation, obviously, to not drive. So I think that might have been what my teammate was dealing with, where they were trying to get it under control with some new medication or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that doesn't seem easy in high school, but
No. But it gets better.
I'm glad they have help. out there and medications and treatments. So that's good.
Yes. Yeah. And that's
Good,
it.
good.
That's what epilepsy
Nice.
is.
I like it. That was a good episode. I like doing the medical stuff. It's fascinating to me.
It's uncomfortable because it's something that I'm not super familiar with or like well versed at. So,
Well, it just seems like it's hard to be because there's so many different kinds. Like even people who have epilepsy, you know, probably are
yeah,
very familiar with their type and then maybe less
like
familiar
me.
with other types.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I didn't even know what a petit mal seizure was before
Yeah.
like you explained it to me in college where you were like, yeah, I just like would stare off and I was like, I did not know that was a thing. And
Yeah.
what a I mean, bad but good timing that you had a seizure at the dentist and she was able to recognize it because like as a parent, I don't know like how you would really if you've
Yeah.
never
If you
experienced it before
don't have
recognize
experience,
them.
yeah, with yourself or know somebody that does have that, then yeah, you
Yeah.
wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's tough. So, well, good. I like the topic. And we will link all the sources and all the resources for that also in the show
Yes,
notes.
we will. And I'll post a picture of Archie.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute. You guys are gonna love him. So, well, great. Okay, well, that's all for this week's episode. Thank you all for tuning in. New episodes drop every Wednesday, so be sure to follow along so you never miss an episode. Follow on whatever podcast platform you are on. We would really appreciate it. Also, leave a review if you enjoyed it. We would love a 5 stars. And that's all for this week. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.